Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, since I'm organizing my Z-Man ElaZtech bait wall, I wanted to do a real quick video on my process for selecting color for soft plastics specifically. But the principles with this also work with you know, hard baits as well. But it's a question that I get a lot. You know, a lot of people want to know, you know, how do I select colors to be able to consistently catch fish all around the country without knowing exactly, you know, what the regional specific favorite colors are. You know, every time you go to a new body of water, there's going to be one or two colors or you know, a group of colors that are going to be, you know, real sleeper colors. You know, the ones that the locals know about. You know, if you go down to Florida, obviously it's like Junebug and watermelon red. If you go to the Tennessee River here, you know, throwing a worm, it's all about red bug or something around that. You know, plum is a really good one, and it wouldn't necessarily fit in with my strategy for selecting the color, but you're always going to find those areas that have specific colors that seem to work really, really well. But that's not what we're really going to talk about. We're not going to dive into every single color on this board. That would just take forever. But what I did want to talk about is kind of, you know, my process for selecting just general colors. And it really all starts off with water clarity. Water clarity is the first factor that I consider when it comes to what colors I'm going to be using. And really there's two different spectrums. You got clear water, and of course you got dirty water, muddy water, stained, whatever it may be. And of course you got variations of you know, clear water and stained water. There's a lot right there in the middle. But really what it starts out with is, let's start out with clear water. In clear water situations, what you're trying to do obviously is match the hatch. That goes without saying for clear water or dirty water. But one of the main key things that's different about clear water is the fact that those fish can use their sense of sight to really be very skeptical of that bait. They can really pick out the inconsistencies with it, the things that they don't like about it. And so you have to make sure that your bait is as close to the natural forage in that body of water as possible. And that's really hard to do sometimes. Sometimes you don't know what the crawfish look like, you know, without going to the ramp and turning over a bunch of rocks, which may or may not be an option at a certain body of water. You may not know what the crawfish look like, or what the bluegill, you know, what specific hue the bluegill have, and also shad or whatever they're eating in the body of water. But the cool thing is that all those species are, with some exceptions, all those prey species are going to want to blend in with their environment. They're going to change their color ever so slightly to blend in, to camouflage themselves, so they're not just, you know, sticking out like a sore thumb, so the predator species like bass can attack them. So we're going to do the same thing with our baits. So every time I go to a body of water that has clearer water, as you know, if I have, you know, 2 foot of visibility or more, that's pretty clear water, and that's when I really want to match the color of my presentation, my soft plastic, my ElaZtech bait, with the surrounding environment. If I'm using, you know, something that's above the bottom, like a swim bait or a jerk bait or something like that, that's supposed to imitate the type of forage that's in the water column, you know, pelagic type forage like shad or blueback herring or something like that, that's when I'm going to want to match the color of my bait to the hue of the water. A lot of these lakes, you know, even if they're clear, they've got kind of that greenish tint to them, or they've got, maybe it's a little bit more blue. That's when I'm going to be using something that really has that greenish tint. I like, with my baits that are off the bottom, that are trying to imitate like shad or herring, I like those transparent type colors that have little green flecks in it. I'll give you a perfect example. Here we go. Bad shad from Z-Man. Bad shad is one bad color, man. This color right here, as you can see, it's got this transparent ElaZtech design to it, but it's got all these little green and blue flecks in it, but it has more green than blue, and it really creates a really good imitation of shad or any pelagic bait species in a body of water that's really clear with a little green hue. So this is a bait that I use, or a color that I use a lot, and it is bait I use a lot too. All right, so next let's talk about bottom bouncing baits. So bottom bouncing baits, same principle. Whatever, you know, and again, we're talking about clear water. Whatever blends in with the bottom composition, that's gonna be using. Say the bottom is kind of a clay point. It's just a clean clay point. A good color for that would be pumpkin. Pumpkin has a really good kind of a clayish kind of color to it, nice brown. It's a really good color for fishing, you know, clay points and things of that matter. So that's a really good example. But another thing, what if we've got a lot of grass on the bottom? What if we're fishing around, you know, shrimp grass, eelgrass, hydrilla, milfoil, whatever it may be? So we've got a really green environment. That's when I'm going to be switching to something like watermelon red, or a color that Z-Man makes called Easy Money. Easy Money's a real green. It's kind of like a watermelon mixed with a little bit of green pumpkin in it. That's a really good color. But watermelon red is one of the best clear water colors for lakes that have a lot of grass in it. But you get the point. We're essentially trying to match the color of our soft plastic bait or ElaZtech bait with the bottom, the surrounding area, or just the overall tint that the water has. And the reason we're doing that is just to camouflage our bait like the prey species are doing to themselves. And again, this is just to give you a really good starting point as to the colors to use. You're always going to find those crazy colors. You know, John Cox just recently won the Smith Lake Pro Circuit event with black and blue in clear water, which goes against these rules. But you're always going to find those situations where the fish are just really aggressive towards a certain color that doesn't seem to really match this kind of a system. You know, a good example would be like a methylate worm. Methylate worm is you know, a floating worm like this is a really killer spring color. Sometimes there's a narrow window when the fish just get so aggressive towards this color, and you can throw it in clear water too. So it's just a very unnatural color that gets a really vicious strike from fish. And so there's always going to be exceptions to this rule, but it's going to give you a really good starting point. All right, so let's talk about kind of the other end of the spectrum, dirtier water. Now, this takes a totally different principle. You're, instead of you know, trying to blend in with the environment, you're trying to make that bait pop. And again, we'll start with those baits that are above the bottom. You know, in dirtier water situations, it's going to be a chatterbait for sure. And I'm going to need a soft plastic trailer for that. And then we're going to be using like spinner baits with big Colorado blades, things of that sort. And we're going to be using a trailer for that. Those sort of things, you know, anything that's above the bottom. What we're going to be doing is choosing colors that are very vibrant, very bright, that show up very well in that dirty water. So a color that is probably my favorite dirty water color for as a trailer or just by itself is going to be pearl. Pearl is just one of those colors that you know, it's just plain white pretty much, but it shows up really well in dirty water. It really does have a lot of good visibility, and so I use that a lot. Another color would be chartreuse. That also shows up well. But pearl usually is the color that I'm going to be using as my trailers or just as a standalone. And then let's talk about bottom bouncing baits. So bottom bouncing baits, you know, if you're flipping and pitching or you know, fishing a worm or something like that, that's when you're going to be using real dark colors in this dirtier water. So you're going to be using black and blue. Black and blue is a classic. Where we got black and blue? Black and blue is a classic. It just shows up extremely well, creates a really nice silhouette, which is what you're trying to do, and just really shows up very well in that dirty water. Another color that's really good in dirtier water is Junebug. But one thing that I like about Junebug is the fact that it's really good in stained dirty water. So if you got like that tannic stain, that really dark coffee colored water, Junebug is one of the best. I don't know why, but it's just got this perfect hue, and it still is dark enough to create that silhouette, and it'd be easy for those fish to find them. So Junebug is one you've always got to keep in the boat, especially if you go down to Florida. All right, so that is the whole principle behind dirtier water. You're just trying to make the bait more visible, whether that means darker for a solid silhouette, or brighter to just try to brighten things up and get higher visibility that way. It goes either way. You just have to decide what species you're trying to imitate. If it's shad or something like that in dirty water, you're probably going to be using white. If it's some type of bottom, dwelling animal, that's when you're going to be using the darker colors to make it kind of pop out on the bottom. So and then of course, in the middle, there's all different types of colors that you could be using right there in the middle. It really depends on the water clarity, and so you have to experiment a little bit, but you need to kind of have a basic understanding for, if you get into this type of water clarity, you're going to have to start going darker or brighter. And if you start clearing up, that's when you're going to want to be more natural. One color that I'm going to have to throw out there that everybody knows and loves is a color that catches fish everywhere in a lot of different water clarities, and that's green pumpkin. Green pumpkin is just a classic color that just catches them everywhere. It's kind of this greenish brown color with black flakes in it, and it just works everywhere. If you had to have one color that works pretty much all around the country in all different water clarities, I would have to say that green pumpkin would have to be the one. But that's one that really does work well pretty much everywhere. All right guys, so that is my system for color selection for my ElaZtech and soft plastic baits, and really it works the same exact way for my hard baits too. There's some small variations when it comes to hard baits, but pretty much the system is the same. And yeah, it's not a perfect system. There's always going to be those regional and lake specific colors that seem to work, but it's going to get you close enough. And also there's seasonal color selection as well. But this basic system is going to get you close enough to the point where you're going to select the right colors to start catching some fish, building some confidence, and allow you to catch more fish, and hopefully key in on that one color that seems to work the best on a certain body of water at that specific time. So, all right guys, thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate you. And if you have any comments, drop a comment below if you have any questions. Thank you guys for watching. See you out on the water.